I'm Mark Beachy with the Maryland Theater Guide, and I'm here with Shirley Jones. You just performed in The Music Man with your son.
I sure did.
Tell me, what was that like working with your son?
Up in Sacramento, it was fantastic. He's playing the lead, he's playing Professor Wheeler, and I'm playing Mrs. Peru. You know, we had a great marriage. She was beautiful and sang like a bird. Anyway, they're talking about doing another tour of The Music Man with our cast. We had standing ovations every night of 2,500 people.
Oh, I hope it comes to Baltimore and
Yeah,
D.C. We would really appreciate that. Did you give him direction as a mom or with his performance?
I have to tell you, he's brilliant. He's done it many times. And I'm telling you, not just his mother, but other than Robert Preston, I've never seen him.
Well, maybe I'll get a chance to see that.
I hope so.
Any chance of you coming to Broadway?
There always is a chance, but I don't know when. If it's a play, I would think about it. I don't think I'd do a musical.
Not a musical? Okay.
Maybe a play.
Okay. What do you think about the Broadway musicals of today in comparison to the ones of yesteryear?
Well, there's some very fine ones, still today. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing, I can't think of the name of it now.
Well, here's a star. Matthew Broderick.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the one that you're probably thinking of.
Yes, it is, exactly. I'm looking forward to that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time today.
Hello, I'm Mark Beachy with the Maryland Theater Guide, reporting to you from Hunt Valley, Maryland, at the 2012 Mid-Atlantic Nostalgia Convention. Author and radio host Mel Simons will be interviewing three beautiful women of stage, screen, and television, including Shirley Jones, Sherry Jackson, and Veronica Carlson. Let's join them now.
Sorry we're late. We had to use the ladies' room.
How was it, Mel?
They wouldn't let him in. I tried.
He tries every year.
What do you want, honey? Okay.
Well, it is so nice to see a packed house. Nice to see you all. I am Mel Simons, and I will be hosting these three lovely women. Somebody has to do it, folks. And I have been designated. I can't tell you how happy I am to be hosting three of the loveliest ladies in the business. And I mean that most sincerely. Starting at the end, lovely lady from Yorkshire, England. Long way from home. One of the great queens of horror movies. Let's welcome Veronica Carlson. The lovely lady in the middle, great television star, movie star, all around, great personality, lovely lady. Let's have a nice welcome, everybody, for Sherry Jackson. And the very special gal to my right, who I have been in love with my entire life. You can see it's mutual attraction. What can we say about this gal as an actress, as a comedian, as a singer, as an Academy Award winner, one of the great show business personalities? Let's welcome Shirley Jones. Veronica, well, let's start with you. From Yorkshire, England, and as I mentioned, queen of horror movies, which we'll get to very, very shortly. But at what age did it begin for you to become a performer? How did it start?
It was at the age of 5 when I I was chosen to be the Virgin Mary. School nativity play. And I found out subsequently that Caroline had started the same way, except she was Jesus.
And I understand, in addition to your great acting ability, you are an accomplished artist, and you've been doing that for many, many years, haven't you?
Yes, I went to...
Talk a little bit closer so everyone can hear you, please. Talk a little bit closer to the mic, yeah.
I went to college, a 4-year course. I got my bachelor's degree. I majored in life painting and fabric design. That I always have. I've always sketched as a very, very young child. My first school was and it's just in me. I study people's faces. I may not remember everyone's names, but I always remember their faces.
Portraits, basically, are you
Basically, I
thinking?
love portraiture, yeah. And life painting generally, the body, the human form, I love it. Absolutely intrigued by it. I asked my teacher when I was 11 if I was studying skeleton and the skull, so I knew how it worked underneath. And she said, Veronica, you're far too young. You have to wait till the 6th form to think about things like that. So we just continued our silly little novels that we were making. But I always wanted to enter drawing.
And I understand you're quite good. I've heard that from many sources. Shirley, is it true that you were discovered either on a bus or on your way to a bus? Could you enlighten us on that, please?
Well,
Stand nice and close, please. Yeah.
as my mother explained it, I don't really remember it exactly, but she told me that we were getting on a bus, and the bus driver said, "Oh, she's perfect for children. She should be in there." And she's got the personality, she's got the looks, and he gave my mother wrote on the back of a business card the name of an agent. So you should get an agent. So my mother followed up, called the fellow, he interviewed me, I got an agent. I was like 6. I had worked actually before that. I did a play on 5 at Pasadena Playhouse. And that one was about all these children bigger than myself, and there was like an outhouse on the stage, and I had to go into the outhouse for like 5 or 8 minutes and listen for my cue, my dialogue cue. And my mother was always terrified I was going to fall asleep. So I always got my cue, and I remember that I had a dress and I had to undo my bows with that. And I remember being very embarrassed having to walk back out and have to tie my bow. And then on the way home, I had my head hanging out the window. And I said, my mother said, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I said, "I have makeup on. So maybe some producer will hire me."
Wow, quite basic training. Shirley, I get the impression with you that you were born singing.
Well, I cried a lot as a baby. Screamed and cried. My mother didn't know what to do with me, so obviously I was singing. Yeah, I was singing. I was the youngest member of the church choir at age 6. And I just thought everybody could. It was a gift, it was given to me. And it wasn't until and my parents, I'm an only child, so even though it was a big Jones family, I had a lot of cousins and aunts and uncles and everything, and we lived with my grandmother. But even though she knew that I could sing, she thought, well, if you're born, if you're a born singer, you're a born singer, and that was it. So she didn't think any more about it. And I went to a girls' camp when I was 12 years old, and I don't know whether you know it, but girls' voices change as well as boys do at the age of 12. Not as much, but they do. And I remember I sang there for the 2 weeks at the girls' camp, and the counselor called my mother and said, "Do you know that your daughter has a magnificent instrument? And she should take voice lessons, because if it changes, it would be good to have her take voice lessons, and that's how that started. So I started taking voice lessons at age 12. And I was a coloratura soprano headed for the opera. Didn't want to go, though.
Veronica, I think most people know you from your horror movies. How did that begin?
Well, when I was in college, I tend to say I was like Shirley. I used to sing. I used to love to sing. And we did a few operas in college. And I had a sense of destiny about this. I don't know what it was. I couldn't explain it to you. But when we were leaving college, I wanted to do La Vie Parisienne. I was given the lead for that. And the principal of the art school went down to the music professor, said, "I'm sorry, but if she fails her final exam, it's all your fault." So he said, "I'm sorry, Veronica, we're not going to be able to use you." I was so distressed, but anyway. I had a sense that I wanted to be on stage, but I didn't know how it was going to happen. And we used to do reviews in college. We had enormous fun doing them. We were always, there were no drugs. We were just busy people enjoying life. And we did a lot of stage work in our spare time. We raised a lot of money for charity and all that kind of thing. And I used to go and skive off a few lessons to watch Christopher and Peter in their latest town. In fact, we all did. And most of us would come home one day because the professor found there weren't many people in his class, and one little squealer said where we were. And he came to the theatre, and during the break, when there was two films to see in those days, we gingerly looked round, and there was Mr. Shepperson sitting watching us watch the movie, and he stood up. He was a very tall lecturer. He said, "I shall expect to see all of you back in class." He said, "And you will be working extra work, and you will not do this again." And he walked out, and we felt so humbled and silly. But we watched the movie, and it was wonderful. And I thought, somehow I'm going to be there one day. I knew it would happen, I didn't know how. And it happened. That's how it happened.
The rest is history, as they say. Sherry, I have so many fond memories of you with movies, which we'll get into shortly, but I want to talk to you about the Danny Thomas Show. And from speaking to you earlier about your association with Danny, I just get the impression you were not happy doing that show. Could you kind of enlighten us?
First of all, I had come from a movie background. I'd already made at least a dozen movies, and I considered myself a movie actress. And I was on a personal appearance tour in Kansas City, Chicago, New York, and premiered a movie that was made. And they called us and they said, "You need to cut your trip short because they want you to Danny Thomas' daughter in a sitcom on TV." I had done TV, but just little, westerns and things like that. I had done Gene Autry and Roy Rogers and which are really people to watch now. And so can't hear me? You can?
More trouble.
Disregard these people, please. The man is not well. I'm sorry, Sherry.
Gene Autry, Roy Rogers, a whole bunch of them, John Mahoney's show, Rain Rider. I had done all kinds of those kinds of television shows, but that they were one-camera film. So I didn't even know what a pilot was. And so we'd come back to LA early and we'd shoot the pilot. It's 3 cameras, which is brand new. Only Lucy was doing it. Lucy. And we did three cameras, which is like doing a play every week. And it was filmed. And entirely different than being a film actress. So I felt like I had been downgraded somehow because being a film actress to a sitcom, which I didn't know what it was, but the pilot sold it through an agent and I had a 5-year contract to do a sitcom. So I learned how to do a 3-camera sitcom, and as you well know when you watch sitcoms, they're usually very exaggerated, what I call overacting, but it's supposed to be overacting, point across, it's a whole different style of acting. And I was more the kind of actress I'd like to underplay my part, not overplay it. So I had to learn to say my lines differently and for the jokes. So I wasn't happy in that context. Plus we did 39 shows a year here, which they don't do now. And so it was like doing a new play every single week. And it was very hard. It was a lot of hard work. So, and I lost my childhood. So those are the main things that bothered me about that show.
You had a very special relationship with Jean Hagen.
She was my buddy on the show. She and I hung out. We made a lot of interests together, and she had some issues with Danny, and she shared them with me. And he chewed tobacco and spit. And there was a big red bucket on the set that said Danny's butt's written on it. So he'd see how far away he could get from the red can and spit. And he'd always relight a cigar that had gone out. And I don't know if you know that smell, but it makes me nauseous to this day. And nobody ever cleaned up Danny's bucket. Gooey stuff at the bottom. So Jeannie said, I was unhappy with Danny that day, and I made some comment to her, and she said, well, you don't have it bad. She says, I have to kiss him. So Jean wasn't really happy with the show, and her contract was for 3 years. My contract was for 5. When she left after the 3 years, I really didn't want to go back because, without her, I was going to feel really lonely. And so I continued on with fewer shows for 2 more years, a little bit of the 6th year. And, but I mean, there was a lot of fun too. Just saying it's a whole different experience, and having, some of the shows that Shirley, I'm sure, will attest to, if you go up on your lines, they make it a blooper, or they say, okay, let's do it over, it's no big deal. On my show, you didn't dare forget your lines. They would scream from the top back row and say, do you think you can get your lines right this time in front of 300 people? No, we didn't have any fun breaking up or any of that stuff. So it was a very, I didn't think it was really, they treated me like an adult because I was a professional. I worked a lot. And they expected professional everything, which I gave them. But it's hard on a 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old girl to do all that. So
live audience?
Live audience, everything. Really
That must have been one of the first live audience shows.
Partridge Family, we had no live audience ever, no.
And did you have multiple cameras?
No, one.
One. Well, see, that's so much easier.
That's right, yeah.
One camera, no audience is 10 times easier than doing a live play every week. It is rough. And so, yeah, I much better for
And 5 years you did the show.
5 years, I think I did 10 shows this 6th year.
Wow. Shirley, of course, I want to get into the Partridge Family and your fabulous singing career. But I want to talk about your Academy Award. You all know that Shirley won the Academy Award for, the movie? Thank you very much, audience. Could you tell us about that?
Well, that really was an incredible thing for me because it gave me the career that I have today. At that time, even though I had done Oklahoma and Carousel, the wonderful musicals, But if you were a musical performer, for some strange reason, they didn't consider you an actress. So I was a singer, not an actress. I didn't understand that, but that was the case. So after I had done Carousel, even before The Music Man, because I did The Music Man after Gantry, my career was over, literally over. And this was a time of major television acting shows, like Playhouse 90 and Lux Video Theater and those wonderful shows that they had. And all the agents said, don't do television was a big step down if you were a movie star. They just said, don't do television. But I knew I had to in order to prove myself as an actress. And fortunately, I did a Playhouse 90 with Red Skelton called The Big Slide. And I played an alcoholic sunshine girl during the Mack Sennett era. And he was a comic on the skids. And we won all kinds of awards for the show, and I was up for the Emmy. He won the Emmy. I think the show won the Emmy. And out of that, Burt Lancaster happened to see that particular show. And I was in San Francisco doing a nightclub act with my husband, Jack Cassidy. We toured around doing shows together. And I get this telephone call, and he said, hello, is this Shirley Jones? I said, yes. He said, this is Burt Lancaster. I said, sure it is, and I hung up. Right. Fortunately, he called back. He said, Shirley, this is Burt. I said, oh, I'm sorry. He said, listen, do you know the book, Elmer Gantry by Sinclair Lewis? And I said, no. And he said, run out and get it and read it. And this weekend, if you have a day off, I want you to fly in and meet with our producer, writer, Richard Brooks, director. We're doing the film. And he said, I'm thinking of you for the role of Lulu Baines. I said, really? And he said, yeah. Anyway, I got the book. He called me, flew me in. Now the problem here is that Richard, he was producing the film with Richard Brooks, who was directing it, and of course the writer. Richard didn't want me for the film. He didn't even think about me for the film. He wanted Piper Laurie to do it. And I went in and I met with him, and he had a thing about not ever giving his actors a full script. He only gave me your part to read. He gave me my part, and I went in the other room and I read it, and I came in and I said, I'll do it for nothing. I knew that if I got this role, it would change the course of my career, because as I said, nobody thought of me as an actress. Well, I obviously didn't make a hit with him, but Burt held out. And I didn't have to read, I didn't have to screen test or anything. I went back to San Francisco, and 2 days later, Burt said, come on in, you got the part, kid. I said, I did? Well, I'll just continue to the end of this story. But he said, when you come in, also Richard Brooks shot all of his films in sequence. And I didn't come in until the middle of the film, if you remember that. But Burt said, I want you to come to the set every single day. I want you to watch him work. I want you to watch the other wonderful actors, Gene Simmons, work. I want you to watch his direction. And I want you to have lunch with me every day. We need to talk about the part. I said, great, which is what I did. My first scene in the film was the hardest scene I had to do in the film, which was the scene in the House of Prostitution where I tell everybody how I first met Elmer Gantry. If you remember the famous line, he took me behind the pulpit and rammed the fear of God into me so hard and so fast, I never heard my old man's footsteps. Coming out of Shirley Jones, some of the churches were not too happy. Nevertheless, I did that scene, and I got no direction from Mr. Brooks. He just sat there smoking his pipe and never gave me a direction. I went home and I said to my husband, it's over, he's going to fire me. He didn't want me, he's going to fire me. The next day I didn't have to work, and he got to see the film that I had shot the day before. And he called me, and he said, Shirley, this is Richard. And he said, I owe you an apology. He said, not only are you going to be great in this film, but I predict you're going to win an Academy Award. And we became great friends. I went on to do another film with him. So that's how that happened.
Wow. Veronica, you got to work with some outstanding stars, and I'd like you to comment on two of my personal favorites, and they're Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, your personal memories.
I can remember the very first time I went to Pioneer Studios to read. we script through. Christopher was there. We all sat around a long table. Freddie Francis, the director, was there. And I met Christopher with great misgivings. His reputation goes before him. He's a very aristocratic, very tall, noble man. And I thought he would be standoffish and aloof, but he was so much the opposite. He was so welcoming, so friendly, and he put me immediately at my ease. And we had a very good read-through, and I was very encouraged by everybody there. I was amazed that for such an unknown person, I was terribly unknown, though I was anybody when I was there at all, it always amazed me. That everyone was so friendly, and that set the stage, no pun intended, for the rest of my experience with Hammer movies throughout the whole gamut of the ones I did. Christopher is a trained opera singer. He speaks 7 languages. He is married to a stunning woman who is also very tall, and she was a mannequin, a Danish woman, Birgitte, who is absolutely an ideal match for him. This was so stunning to see together. And I was fortunate enough to meet her and get to know her. They made us very welcome in their home. And Peter, I was amazed at how gentle Peter was. Peter was his reputation went before him as being a very gentle. Well, everyone said, "Oh, we love Peter," and I thought, "He can't be that good. He can't be loved by everybody." He was loved by everybody. There was not one bad word about Peter said by anybody. And I think if anyone had said, they would have been thrown off the set completely, and the stage would all walk behind them. Peter was a gentleman of the old school. He would make his own stage designs. He had his own theatre, model theatres in his home. He had many, many army figures. He'd set up battles. He had a wonderful eclectic taste about. He was a painter. He was an artist, a watercolorist. He wrote a book called The Boy's Saga, which was enchanting. I have a couple of those copies. And I got to know him, unfortunately, because of an unfortunate scene. I got to know him very well in the Frankenstein movie. And that's when he was the right man for the role in more ways than one. Because we had to discuss a scene that was introduced into the movie 5 weeks after we had started the movie, and we only had 6 weeks shoot. The film had been shot. So when Jimmy Carrera stormed into the set on Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed, waving these papers in the air, I can see him doing it to this day. He said, "That's it, we need more sex in this movie. We have to have more sex in this movie." He'd obviously been on the phone to somebody, I don't know. And he was having a little rage all his own. And then he threw his papers down and he stormed out before anyone was saying anything. Terry ran out after him, Terry Fisher, the director, remonstrated with him, and I heard him, we all heard him, saying, "We can't, we finished shooting the movie." Everyone, their reactions, everything's different. He is not a sexual man. He does not think sex. He is asexual. It is so unnatural. Peter was all distressed because he had the same argument. Everybody was distressed. The crew, we were all passionate about Hammer movies and the truth of them. And everyone was upset about it. So none more. I was in tears, no, not in tears, I didn't. I just sat absolutely aghast. They were going to strip my nightgown off me. I said, "No, I'm not going to be nude in this." I wasn't going to be nude in anything. So the dresses were trying to cover me up. Everything they did made me look ruder than I was naked. And Roger Moore heard about this. And I worked with Roger, and he came on the set, and he was comforting me. He had his arms around me, stroking my back, trying to calm me down. And everybody was saying all this and all of this. Peter said to me, "Let's go to dinner, darling. I'll take you to dinner and we're going to discuss this. We'll discuss it quietly, just us two." Because he was embarrassed as much as I was. In those days it was so different, you know. In those days it was so different. And we went to dinner. He wore his white gloves. He presented me with a corsage. We had a quiet dinner. And we didn't talk about the scene. We circumvented it, sort of. And we went back to his lovely little home in London to discuss it. And he looked into my eyes, he held both my hands, and he said, "Darling," and he had tears in his eyes. He said, "Darling, when we do this scene," because we went through moves without doing it, because he said, "I'm not going to take your clothes off." He looked at me, he held both my hands, he said, "Darling, remember this isn't me. please remember it will be me. It's not me. And he reacted like that, you know, we went, thank you, Peter. we did it, but it was horrible. And afterwards, he just held me, because he had to take some of my gown, and he just held me and covered me up. And we were so glad it was all over. But everybody was disgusted by it, and I'm still cross about it. Because I kept saying to Terry, we've done the movie. My reactions would have been so different. I would have looked like a clown. But anyway, I ended up acting in another movie with Hannah, so all's well in the end of the world. But I worked with two wonderful, wonderful men, and they helped me at such a wonderful time. I was lucky.
Shirley, I have enjoyed the many, many things you've done over the years, but there's one series of films that has always fascinated me. It's kind of become a cult thing. And you did many movies with Ma and Pa Kettle. Your personal reminiscences.
Well, my little brother, Gary, was in them too, but you have to know him. He looks just like me. He's a smaller version. And we got that it was fun because there were a lot of kids and we get to play school. And the odd thing about that show was, what's her name, leading lady, Veronica Carlson. She was a germ freak. Here we are filming like in a pigsty. And all the mothers told the kids, if you have the sniffles or you want to sneeze, you go and hide and do it, because if she hears you have a cold, you're fired. Yeah, she didn't want any germs on the set. But other than that, it was kind of fun, and I was very young at the time, and I enjoyed it. But one little bit, you can find me for a Lancaster, I never really met him or always adored him. I think he's great. I was on an interview, I think it was in Around or one of the studios, and I just finished the interview or whatever. There was a water drinking fountain at the end of the hall. So I went to the water drinking fountain to get something to drink, and I leaned over, and someone patted my dairy, often known as your butt. And I was in shock. And I turned around, I was ready to hit whoever just had done that. And here I see these big teeth. He says, sorry, man. I just couldn't resist. About 17 or 18, probably 18 or 19.
Oh, you were your teeth.
Yeah.
He had excellent taste.
With that big smile, all those teeth, and sparkly eyes, and you know, I didn't be mad at him.
No, hardly.
Actually, now I'm kind of proud of the fact that, you know, I thought it was good enough to hit.
That big front page headlines, huh? Shirley, you have one of the most glorious voices in history. I'm sure everyone will agree. You have made three of my favorite musicals, Oklahoma, Carousel, and Music Man. First of all, I want to ask you, which was your favorite, and could you comment a little on each of those movies?
Well, of course, Oklahoma was the first, you know, and that was Rodgers and Hammerstein's baby. They produced it themselves. We did some of it at MGM, but mostly it was done in Nogales, Arizona. We did it in Arizona because Oklahoma was too built up to look like 1900 at that time. And of course, that was an incredible experience for me. I was barely out of high school, and I won't go into it. That's a long story of how it happened, but I was on my way to school to become a veterinarian, stopped for an audition in New York, and never got to college. So that's how that happened, very quickly. Carousel, though, is, I think, the most beautiful music ever written. I think that score that they wrote. I'm not sure that the motion picture was done as well as it could have been. You know, originally, the leading man in Carousel was supposed to be Frank Sinatra. And he was cast. And we had done all the pre-stuff with Frank. You know, we did the pre-recordings. That's what you did then. You pre-recorded the music and then you sang with your own voice on the set. We'd done all the photographs, all the costumes, all the rehearsals. And the location was Booth Bay Harbor, Maine. And so we're all ready now to go up to Booth Bay, where all of the singers and dancers had been working for months. You know, when you did a musical film at that time, it was almost like a Broadway show. You pre-rehearsed it for months ahead, and then it would take anywhere from 3 to 9 months to shoot. So it was a very long process. And Frank was in on this for the most part. Now, I knew, and we were told by everybody, that we may have to shoot the scenes twice because we were shooting in regular CinemaScope, what they call CinemaScope 55. And Henry King was our director. We're ready to shoot the first scene up in Booth Bay, and I'm standing on the dock waiting for Frank to come in the first dramatic scene. He shows up in a limousine from the airport, and he sees the 2 cameras, and he says, "Why the 2 cameras?" And Henry said, "Well, you know, you may have to shoot a couple scenes twice." And Frank said, "I signed to do 1 movie, not 2. Back in the car and back to the airport. After all of that work. The producer came over to me and said, "Shirley, where's Gordon McRae?" I said, "He's up in Lake Tahoe doing a nightclub act with his wife." He said, "Could you get him on the phone?" He was crying. Now, I'm on a dock with a payphone. He handed me a hatful of quarters. I called the hotel in Lake Tahoe, got Gordon on the phone, and I said, "Gordon, how would you like to play Billy Bigelow in Carousel?" And he said, "Give me 3 weeks, I have to lose 10 pounds. And that's how Gordon got the part, you know, and we had to wait for him to do the role. I could go on and on about this too, but then, of course, as I said, that's my favorite score, still is my favorite score. And I found out later, by the way, Frank left because Ava Gardner called him from Africa and said, "I'm having an affair with Clark Gable, you better get your butt down here." So that was the real reason. Yes, wasn't it? Yeah. Anyway, Music Man was just extraordinary, though. It really was. I love making it. We did it at Warner Brothers. And by the way, once again, Warner Brothers wanted Frank Sinatra to play the lead in that. And Meredith Willson came in and said, "Unless you use Robert Preston, you don't do my show." And that's how that happened. And it was great. He was wonderful to work with, just wonderful. And at the moment, it's the 50th anniversary. And at the moment, I just came from Sacramento doing 14 shows of The Music Man with my son Patrick, playing Professor Hill, and me doing Mrs. Peru with the Irish accent. And we had a magnificent Marion. And I'll just finish it off by saying at the moment my son is up in Las Vegas, and it looks like we might do a complete new tour of The Music Man with the 2 of us playing the roles.
Speaking of playing different roles, I was telling Shirley, I live in Boston, and you were in Waltham not too long ago with Carousel playing a different role, and you were super.
Was it Carousel?
No, it was Carousel.
Yeah, that was Mrs. Peru.
Yeah, Mrs. Peru. And
Her mama.
just dynamite.
I've been doing all 3 films. I mean, Oklahoma. I did Oklahoma in Pittsburgh, which is my hometown. And I played Aunt Eller, right? And then in Carousel, I've been doing Cousin Nettie. So I've been playing with different, you know, old roles in the musicals. It's great fun for me.
Veronica, here's a question I'm sure many folks over the years have asked you. What did you like better, Frankenstein or Dracula?
They both had very endearing qualities.
I love British humor.
And your reason, I mean, where you are so associated with both, why did you prefer one over the other? For what reason?
Why did I prefer
Was it more fun for you? Should I rephrase the question? Was it more fun for you doing one more than the other?
I had enormous fun on each of them for different reasons. The first director I had was Veronica Carlson, who was wonderful. He was almost like a dad. And I was so nervous. It was my first speaking role. I'd been mistaken for Lady Penelope once again. I was doing a car commercial, and this woman came up to the car and banged on the window. Bang, bang, bang. And I jerked around, and she said, "Here, I know you. You're Lady Penelope, ain't you? I've seen you on the telly. I always knew you could drive. I know you didn't need no chauffeur." I've done very small parts. What I'm trying to say is I haven't had a speaking part. But Freddie he put all the courage into me that I needed so badly. And did a couple of retakes for me, which I needed so badly. I soon learned not to go to the brushes. And I thought Chris brought a wonderful sexuality to Dracula. I thought evil should be really glamorous and attractive and tempting. And that was my first screen kiss, of course, right on the jugular. And he was everything to me. I found him immensely exciting to work with. And then, of course, there was Peter. That was a different feeling altogether. The director was so different. My first scene with Terry Fisher and Peter, we were sitting on the cellar steps. And Terry turns to Peter. We're all in costume waiting to go through the scene. Now, how would you like to kill her, Peter? I've been giving that a lot of thought, Terry. I think we should use the scalpel. Good idea, says Terry. Because the scalpels are easy to hand, right? And she goes, "That's right." Says, "It's as if I'm not there." And I'm listening to them discuss my pending doom. As if it was just, what would you like? Two sugars in your tea or one? So Peter created the death scene. So you see the difference between the two men was so different, so different. And anyway, so that's how I ended up with a scalpel and a block of wood in my heart, as he said, "I'll embrace onto the scalpel," and which he did. And so the two experiences I wouldn't have swapped for the world. So different, but so similar in the same horror genre that I really enjoyed in those days. Not that, but yeah, it was really special. Yeah, that's it.
Queen of the horror movies, that's you. You are the queen of the horror movies.
Oh, thank you very much. I never considered this.
Yes, I do believe that.
I enjoyed it immensely.
Sherry, with all your TV shows and many movies that you made, what were your personal favorite shows on both TV and movies? What gave you the greatest personal satisfaction?
One of my favorite movies, it's called Come Next Spring. Have any of you here seen it? It's a wonderful film. It's supposed to be in Arkansas. My stepfather wrote it for me, and I met mother when I was 10. We got it produced on a very low budget at a studio called Propeller, which was down here at the studio. We shot it up in the middle of California where it was very, very hot. And Steve Crocker played the father, and I played a mute in it. And everyone who sees it loves the film. It's a period piece, and I played a mute in it, which I had just done all the Danny Thomas shows. They dyed my hair strawberry blonde so I wouldn't look like the Danny Thomas show. And they made me wear tight slips so nothing looked like I was budding anything. And having to play a mute in it, and I hope my stepfather, gave me feedback writing the screenplay for 30 years. I knew it forward to backwards. And so I didn't have to learn any lines, which was great, because I was sick of learning lines. So even my mother said, "Don't you want to look over the scene for tomorrow?" And I said, "No, let it be a surprise." I said, like I've never heard the line before, and I don't have to say anything. I just have to react. So the film is it's loved by many, many people, and I do love that film. And it was my stepfather's first writing feature. And my second favorite film was Trouble Along the Way with John Wayne, which he was so great to work with. Michael Curtiz was the director. I did 3 movies with Michael Curtiz, which is not an easy feat. There's a book coming out, I don't know when, by Alan Modi. It's the whole story of Curtiz. I can't wait to read it because he's quite a Hungarian character. And he embarrassed me a few times, made me cry. And I had some crying scenes in the movie, and he said, "Oh, in Hungarian, he said, oh, my little Shirley. I turn her on like a faucet, and I turn her off like a faucet." But the sad thing about that is you have to use memories, or I did. I had to use memories that made me cry. And I don't think that's healthy for a child to do. To keep going over funerals or your daddy died or things like that to make you cry. So, that was one of the downsides of it. But, I liked Gun too. That was fun because that was Blake Edwards. I never worked with any director that was so much fun in my life. He had a pool table on the set. The very first scene, they let go of the other actors. They had to make up time. I had to shoot 5 pages of a movie in the first day. That's my introduction into the film, so it's very important. What was the name of it? Gun. Oh, Gun. Peter Sellers, Blake Edwards, and Craig Stevens. And so we shot 5 pages that day, crucial stuff. And the next day, Mel Shabelson, you would know it. Bob Evans from Paramount, you would know. And all came on the set, and they wanted to sign me to a 3-picture deal just to see the dailies from the very first day that I filmed. That was very complimentary, but I had a really stupid agent. And he said, "Oh, they've got this Robert Redford film called Downhill Racer. It's a turkey. They're going to do that." He said they want a 3-picture deal, and, you know, say no. What did I know? So I said no. And I hardly worked after that, as the pictures say. Didn't do a lot of business. And everyone thought it was a capital, stardom, whatever.
Wow, what a story.
I love the film. I do. I like the film. It's not a great film, but I like me in it.
I hope so. Shirley, of course I want to get into the Partridge Family, but I found one thing very interesting before you talk about Partridge. You offered the role and you turned it down in the Brady Bunch. How come?
Well, first of all, you know, if at that particular time, if you were a movie actress, again, agents and managers says don't do a television series. Because if it is successful, you will be that character for the rest of your life and your movie career will be in the toilet. They were right. So when I was offered the Brady Bunch, you know, it was just the norm, for me, the normal mama taking the roast out of the oven, you know, with the kids. And the fact that my agents didn't want me to do the television series anyway, I thought, no, I don't think I want to do that. So I said no to it. But then, I got the offer of the Partridge Family. Now, it was a different kind of mama. I was the first working mama on television. We were musical, you know, and the fact that they were going to cast David Cassidy, my stepson, as my son in the film. And then the other big reason for me at the time, too, was that I figured, you know, even though, again, the agents were against it, I said, wait a minute. If this is successful, I'll be able to stay home and raise my kids because they were school age at that time. And up to that point, I'd taken them all over the world on movie locations with a nanny, you know. And I had 3 young boys. And so I thought, wow, it would give me an opportunity to stay home. half-hour show, one camera, as we said. So I thought this would be great fun. So that's why I chose the Partridge Family, and thank the Lord I did, because it was successful. I got to stay home and raise my kids. And it was great fun to do. I just loved doing the show. You know, I had great memories of it. And David and I, you know, became closer than we ever were, because naturally in the beginning I met him when he was 7 years old, and I was the wicked stepmother to him, you know, for a while, which always happens. And we became very close on an adult level. So, and I was close with everybody. I had a great time.
How many years was Partridge on?
Unfortunately, it was about 4.5 years. They didn't go well. They didn't go well into the 5th year because they got the you know, the series that played opposite and became a giant hit. Of course, I can't think of the name of it now. Thank you very much. All in the Family. Yes, I knew somebody would give it to me. Yes, they cast us opposite All in the Family, and at that time, you know, All in the Family was a very different kind of show for television. So it was a giant hit, and that's one of the reasons then, thank you, that we had to go off the air.
It's a shame. Great show, I'm sure you all agree. Yes. What we'd like to do, folks, in the next few minutes is kind of open up a question and answer period with you folks. If you will raise your hands, and I'll call upon you, and yell out your question so that everybody can hear, and direct your question to whichever one of these lovely ladies. Sir, nice and loud, please.
Shirley, between Carousel, Disneyland, and Oklahoma, we could do April Love.
April Love with Pat Boone, right. Yeah, that's right. It was between, let's see, yeah, it was between Carousel and Elmer Gantry. And then I did Music Man. I was doing the Music Man when I accepted the Academy Award for Gantry. So it was after Carousel, yeah. And we were in Kentucky with Pat Boone on that.
Yes, nice and loud. Thank you very much. This is a labor of love with these three lovely ladies. Sir, nice and loud, please.
Two of the greatest musicals on stage and movies, Music Man and Oklahoma. And due to the talent, singing talent, the acting talent that they were made. My question is, tell us about the reaction and interaction with Ron Howard and with Charlotte Greenwood.
Well, Ron Howard wasn't in Oklahoma, but Charlotte Greenwood was. Yeah, right. Charlotte was wonderful. You know, I was very young. I was just out of high school when I did Oklahoma, and at that time it took anywhere from 9 months to a year to make a motion picture musical, and we were in Nogales, Arizona, for about 8 months, and that's when, you know, actors didn't have the unions behind them, and we shot 7 days a week, 15-hour days. It was a very difficult job. I almost gave up show business after Oklahoma. Is this what it's supposed to be? But it was wonderful. It was a great experience for me. And then, oh, you want to know about Ron Howard? Well, Ron Howard was, we did a movie together, but it wasn't any of the musicals, you know. Yeah, he was fantastic. He was a really experienced young actor, you know. I mean, he was extraordinary to work with. And just loved being with him, you know. We did 2 films, and he was great in all of them, you know. Or The Music Man, of course. Yeah, he was about 9 years old, exactly right.
You mentioned you filmed Oklahoma and Arizona. Where now?
Nogales, right on the Mexican border. Nogales, Arizona. They wanted a place that looked like 1900, you know, and no housing, no nothing. And we planted a cornfield, you know, ahead of time. Everything was real. The house was real, you know. They built everything just for the film down there.
Yes.
Yes, Shirley Jackson. I'd like to ask your memories
at an awkward age. I think I was around 17 when you don't really work. Because when you turn 18, you don't have to have a tutor on the set. When you're 17, you still have to have a tutor, so that's an extra salary. So when I did Twilight Zone, my stepfather wrote that one and wrote it for me. If you become a fan of my stepfather's work, he did a lot of brilliant stuff. He unfortunately passed away from cancer when he was 40. He had a brilliant career ahead of him. And he did like 4 or 5 Twilight Zones, Maverick, Sugarfoot, 77 Sunset Strip. Africa was one of his dearest, closest friends, and gave it to me with me. And Will Hutchins said he was like a father to him. And he directed the episode I was in, and he cast and all the other. He had all his favorite character actors, and he would always cast shows he was doing. And I think it's a good director. Like Mr. Brooks, which you mentioned, they don't have to tell you anything. They either know you've got it, you're right for the part, and they know you can do it. And if that's the case, they just let you go and you do it. And you're not hassled by having to change things or whatever. And working with my stepfather, he knew my talent, and it was just great. We laughed and joked and had a wonderful time. And as I said, he didn't really direct me.
Thank you. Yes. Right over here, yes, sir.
Question for Shirley. You still keep in contact with the family members of the Cowsills?
The Cowsills. Yeah. You know, the Cowsills was the Partridge Family. I don't know whether any of you did know that. Yes, they were the real family. And unfortunately, they tried to do the series with the Cowsills, but they weren't actors. And suddenly they decided that they couldn't act it. So that's how Partridge Family came to be. Yes, they contact me every now and then. I've done a couple of benefits with them and for them, you know. And they're really wonderful family, great people.
They come into Boston, by the way, sir, if you're interested. One of our local venues, just found out. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Veronica. I'm still there?
What do you think, she left, madam? Of course she's here. You know you're still here.
I wanted to do some of the British houses for any of the current British shows. Are you still active?
Well, I'm not so up to date with Doctor Who. I don't want to. But I do enjoy a lot of them, you know. Are You Being Served? There's old Mrs. Bouquet. I enjoy those enormously. I'm enjoying Doc Martin, which is coming up. It's gaining great popularity over the year. I'm watching that. I enjoy that very much. And I think on Saturday they have in Georgia Public Television, they have From Lark Rise to Candlefoot. I enjoy Masterpiece Theatre. I'm very much of the old school. I'm sort of stuck in those good old days, you know. And I still enjoy them very, very much indeed. But not so much the modern stuff, maybe. Maybe some of the, maybe some of them. Maybe some of the criminal ones I enjoy, but that's pretty much it.
Have you had any roles in any of those?
No, I haven't done any screen work or TV work since I left the industry. I've gone back for benefits and things like that, charity things, which I'm involved with a charity at the moment for the disappearing planet, which I care very much about, but no, nothing else. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yell it out, please.
The question is to Shirley Jones. One of the perks, really, of doing the Partridge Family was to be actually part of a pop group and doing those recordings and doing those pop harmonies, and which was quite different from what you had done in the musicals. What was it like being part of a late 60s pop group, apart from the series, really?
Well, you want to know the real truth? I never sang one thing in the Partridge Family. No, actually, in the almost 5 years of the show, I only had 2 solos, and they weren't pop solos. You know, the Whales song, if you remember that beautiful song, I love that song too. Yeah, I love that too. So, and when David Cassidy would go into the, you know, to do the recordings, and of course, as you know, he became a giant star out of the Partridge Family, rock star. I would go to the recording studio with him so that I could have my name on the album, and I would do you know, and that was it. And the rest were actual singers that came with the recording behind him.
Was that frustrating?
No, actually, and none of us played the instruments either. You know, people would come up and say, "Why doesn't the Partridge Family play Vegas and go out on tour?" And I kept saying, "You don't understand. There is no Partridge Family."
Boy, you guys getting some good dirt, let me tell you. Yes, sir, the gentleman with the hat.
Shirley, any memories of the Poseidon?
Of the Poseidon Adventure? Yeah, it wasn't a very exciting film for me to do, I have to be very honest with you. The director at that time was, you know, had already done several films of that kind. And the only good thing about me in that film was I got great actors to work with, you know. I wasn't thrilled with our director, and you know, he just sort of knew the story and didn't talk to the actors. But all the other actors were wonderful, and that was the best part, to tell you the truth.
Sir? Gentleman with the blue, yes.
Given the state of Hollywood today with computers, effects, and so forth, and violence and things like that, do you want to do a revival or a future or musical?
I hate to say this, but I don't really. You know, they tried to do it a couple of times. I wish I could say yes to that. Maybe it'll change, but it's a whole different genre now. It's a different Hollywood now. It's a whole different business, you know. I mean, I don't even know the business anymore, to tell you the truth. I don't understand it. I'm not sure I like it. Reality shows make me crazy. You know, so I'm not sure.
Most folks, they tend to agree with what you just said. Gentleman with the hat, yes, sir.
Let's say I'm a producer. I have unlimited resources, and I want to cast you free in anything you'd like to play. Now, what would that be?
A remake of the Snake Pit.
Is this directed to the 3 ladies? Yes.
She just said a remake of the Snake Pit. That'd be great.
Veronica?
This is a question I've long thought about in my private moments of longing and yearning for those days. I'd like to do it on something of a period with Henry VIII or one of the Tudors, something like that. Something very dramatic and exciting. Yes, that would be good. Or, let me see. Do you know, I'd love to have thought of that. I wish you'd given me that question to give me about a few moments more to think about it. There's so much to... Oh, there's so much. Because I'm an avid reader, and I just love historical books. Brontes, anything like that would have been an easy thing to do. Yes, I'd love to do something.
Interesting question. Yes, sir.
Sherry, what was it like doing the Star Trek?
What was it like doing it? Star Trek, what was it like doing it? It was very interesting. After several meetings with Gene Roddenberry and the costume designer designing my costume, it was made out of stretched ski material. And in those days, the ski material was really thick and stretched a lot, not like this. And so we designed it, I helped design it, we all 3 designed it together. I do have to take some credit for it. And we got lighting, the good, everybody's staring at me. And so the assistant director is talking to the director, he says, well, just put a bathrobe on her, or whatever. He says, no, her body makeup will come off, and it's 90 degrees, and I don't think that's the solution. He says, I think if you just let them watch and let her walk around and get used to her, and they'll do their jobs, which is what happened. You know, they all got their bill looking at the outfit and did their jobs. But one interesting thing was that Shatner used to always come in without his hairpiece on. And I didn't know he was bald until I saw him the first time. And so they had a censor on the set because in those days, cleavage could show in the front, but it couldn't show on the sides. Is the rule. So we went and took Shatner's toupee tape. Double-sided tape, and we put it in there to make sure there weren't any gaps. And it was a lot of fun. You know, I had to create a role that was many multiple layers of being an android, of feelings, getting feelings, being confused about feelings, being part human, part android, being part whatever. So I had to overcome my costume and really develop the character, which I think I did. A lot of people movie I have, but I think I did. And I really enjoyed doing it. And one other thing, when I went to make it here, they said, whatever you do not mention Spock's ears. He just goes ballistic. That was before he made $1 billion doing the movies and everything else. Those ears made him a fortune.
Do you still have that costume?
I wish I could sell it for a lot.
We wish too. In the interest of time, one last question. Randy?
Yes, to speak for Shirley. You've recently done television. You got a recurring role with Drew Carey. And I was wondering how you would compare the technology of television even in a 20-year period, between years.
What television are you talking about that I recently did? Oh, the Drew Carey. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you say that. Oh yeah, no, I had a very good time doing that show. You know, I loved the role. I was his lover instead of his mother, so that was kind of nice. And we really had a good time. I enjoyed it. It was fun to do.
The technology of the television.
Yeah, well, that was different. You know, as I said, you know, when I did The Partridge Family, we had no audience shows, and you know, 3-camera audience shows. That was later on, and but I loved it. The thing I was always nervous about, it was like doing, you know, a Broadway show. I mean, you talked about lines, but you had to know your lines. And when you have an audience, although a few people went up on them and they would say, okay, just redo it, do it again, you know. But it was such a fun show to do. He was fun to work with, you know. He was a crazy guy and great fun, and now he's doing very well too. So I had a good time. It was a lot of fun.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the interest of time, and let me tell you, I could just keep going. Would you join me in a super duper round of applause for three fabulous,